in one of the world's most volatile regions. Two powerful nations stand locked in a rivalry that has shaped Middle Eastern politics. For more than 4 decades, the Islamic Republic of Iran, the State of Israel, today, they view each other as existential threats. But history tells a surprising story. Because before revolution, before ideology, before proxy wars and missile strikes, Iran and Israel were not enemies. They were partners. To understand how this transformation happened, we must go back to a very different Middle East. In the decades after Israel's founding in 1948, much of the Arab world refused to recognize it. Regional hostility defined Israel's early years, leaving it isolated. But Iran was different. Under the rule of Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, Iran maintained discreet but meaningful ties with Israel. You see, the Shah ruled a secular monarchy aligned closely with Western powers, particularly the United States. While others refused, Iran supplied Israel with crucial oil. Their intelligence agencies cooperated. Trade channels operated quietly, just beneath the surface of regional politics. Why did they work together? Because both governments shared common concerns. They both worried about Soviet expansion during the Cold War. They were both wary of rising Arab nationalism sweeping the region. And they both valued stability in a very unstable neighborhood. At the time, practical geopolitics mattered more than ideology. But beneath this outward stability, Iranian society was stirring. The Shah's rapid economic modernization created deep inequality. Political repression angered many, and religious leaders grew more vocal, criticizing the Shah's alignment with the West. By the late 1970s, that widespread dissatisfaction boiled over into revolution. In 1979, an earthquake shook the Middle East. Mass protests, strikes, and demonstrations overwhelmed the monarchy. The Shah fled Iran, leaving a power vacuum. And into the vacuum stepped Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini. The Iranian Revolution wasn't just a simple regime change. It was a complete ideological transformation of the country. Iran became an Islamic republic, and its entire foreign policy shifted overnight. It moved away from its Western alignment toward a new path of revolutionary resistance. And Israel became a central symbol of everything the new regime opposed. Diplomatic ties were severed immediately. The Israeli embassy in Tehran was famously handed over to Palestinian representatives. The new Iranian leadership declared that unwavering support for Palestinian causes would now be a core pillar of its national identity. For Israel, this was a dramatic and deeply alarming shift. A former regional partner had transformed into an outspoken adversary, seemingly in the blink of an eye. The era of quiet cooperation was over. A new era of confrontation had begun. This new hostility between Iran and Israel is rooted in both ideology and very real security concerns. From Iran's perspective, its opposition to Israel is framed as moral support for Palestinian rights and resistance against occupation. It's a key part of their revolutionary identity. From Israel's perspective, the constant rhetoric from Iranian leaders calling for its elimination isn't just talk. It's a direct existential threat. Over the years, speeches from Iranian leaders only intensified these tensions. In response, Israel's security establishment began to focus heavily on monitoring Iran's growing influence across the region. This ideological rivalry soon took on a military dimension, but not in the way many expected. Instead of direct war, the conflict moved into the shadows. A direct, all-out war between Iran and Israel would be catastrophic, and both sides know it. The risks are enormous. So instead, their rivalry expanded through proxies. Iran began building a network of allies, supporting groups that opposed Israel. The most prominent of these are Hezbollah in Lebanon and Hamas in Gaza. These alliances dramatically extended Iran's influence, allowing it to project power far beyond its borders. For Israel, this created what security analysts call a ring of fire. Hostile groups armed and funded by Iran, positioned right on its northern and southern borders. Israel didn't just sit back. It responded with a strategy of its own: targeted airstrikes, complex intelligence operations, and persistent efforts to disrupt weapons transfers, especially in Syria. Over time, Syria became a major battleground for this indirect confrontation. This period marked the beginning of what experts now describe as a long-running shadow war. It's a conflict fought with covert operations, cyber attacks, sabotage, and strategic assassinations. Neither side has ever declared open war, but for decades, both have been engaged in continuous, undeclared conflict. If one issue elevated this regional rivalry to a global concern, it was Iran's nuclear program. For years, the world has watched the situation with anxiety. Iran has always insisted that its nuclear activities are for peaceful energy purposes. But Israel, along with many Western nations, argues that a nuclear-capable Iran would fundamentally and dangerously alter the balance of power in the Middle East. This dispute led to intense international negotiations and eventually, the signing of the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, or JCPOA, back in 2015. The deal was designed to limit Iran's nuclear activities in exchange for lifting crippling economic sanctions. However, disagreements over compliance and the eventual U.S. withdrawal from the deal in 2018 reignited the crisis. For Israel, preventing Iran from ever acquiring a nuclear weapon became its absolute top strategic priority. For Iran, maintaining its nuclear program became a matter of national pride and a key part of its deterrence strategy. The nuclear issue has only deepened the mistrust on both sides, fueling even more covert actions, including sophisticated cyber warfare and high-stakes intelligence operations. As we moved into the 2020s, the shadow war started to come out into the open. The conflict became more visible, more frequent, and more dangerous. The number of strikes in Syria increased. Missile technology on both sides advanced. The use of sophisticated drones in warfare expanded dramatically. And for the first time, we started seeing occasional direct exchanges between Iranian and Israeli forces, replacing the purely indirect conflict that had defined the rivalry for so long. A mix of regional instability, shifting alliances in the Middle East, and broader global power competition all contributed to these rising tensions. The rivalry was no longer just a concern for intelligence circles. It became a central, driving axis of Middle Eastern geopolitics. It's crucial to understand that the Iran-Israel conflict is not isolated. Its shockwaves are felt across the globe. It directly affects global oil markets, because any instability in the Persian Gulf can send prices soaring. It's a major factor in U.S. foreign policy. It influences relations between Russia and the West, and its impact is felt every day in places like Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, and Gaza. Major international bodies, including the United Nations, have repeatedly called for restraint. They understand that a direct escalation between Iran and Israel could potentially draw in multiple global powers. In a region already marked by so much volatility, even a limited clash carries worldwide consequences. So, after decades of hostility, why have Iran and Israel avoided a full-scale, conventional war? The simple answer is that both sides understand the devastating cost. A direct war would be ruinous for both and could spiral out of control. Instead, their strategy is a dangerous dance of deterrence, signaling, and carefully calculated escalation. Each side constantly attempts to project strength and resolve to damage the other's capabilities, but to do so without triggering an uncontrollable, all-out conflict. It is a precarious, dangerous balance, and one miscalculation could change everything, from quiet cooperation to ideological confrontation, from a hidden shadow war to open nuclear tension. The rivalry between Iran and Israel is not simply about territory. It's a complex struggle for power, for security, for regional influence, and for national identity. And its next chapter remains deeply uncertain. Thanks for watching. In our next episode, we will explore how proxy forces have transformed this rivalry into a regional battlefield, stretching from the mountains of Lebanon to the streets of Gaza and beyond. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss it.